Hi, in this video I'm going to show you how to install the Ndi OBS plugin on Ubuntu. The Ndi tools allow you to stream audio and video with low latency to another computer on the network, but unfortunately they're only available for Mac and Windows. If you come across to the Ndi Tools page, you'll see these are the selection of tools that you can actually install on Mac and Windows, but unfortunately we don't have any of these tools on Linux. If you scroll down to the bottom, you'll see these are only available for Mac and Windows. But there is a plugin for OBS Studio that will allow you to export your stream as an Ndi stream or import an Ndi source into OBS Studio. What you need to do is actually Ubuntu ships with an older version of OBS Studio. So what you're going to actually have to do is uninstall OBS Studio that you've installed with the regular Ubuntu repository, and then install the PPA from obsproject.com download. So if you come to this page and you click the Tux icon for Linux, you'll see that these are the commands that we need to run to install the latest version of OBS Studio, which is required to get the OBS Ndi plugins working. The Ndi plugin won't work with the stock version of OBS Studio that comes with Ubuntu because it's too old. So basically what you need to do is, if I shift across to my Linux machine for a second, so I'll just come across to here. First of all, what you need to do is actually uninstall OBS Studio, which you do is sudo apt remove OBS Studio, then press return, and that will actually uninstall OBS Studio on your computer. And then the next step is that we would come back to here. We need to add the repository. So if I shift back across to this screen here, what you need to do is make sure you've got ffmpeg installed, which you should do already if you've installed OBS Studio previously. So that would be sudo apt install ffmpeg. And then what we need to do is actually install the PPA package, sudo apt repository PPA :obsproject/OBS Studio. Then I would recommend doing a sudo apt update, and then running sudo apt install OBS Studio, and that will install the latest version of OBS, which at the moment is 25.8, whereas the version in the Ubuntu repository is I believe 25.3. And this is important because what we're going to do is install the OBS Ndi package, and I'll put links to this under the video. But basically we come across to I won't try and pronounce this guy's name, the OBS Ndi package and the releases section, and you see this is the latest release down here. And basically what we need to do is download these two deb files, libndi4_4.5.1-1 amd64.deb, and this one here, obs-ndi_4.1-1. Okay, so that's these two deb files. So what you need to do is download this deb file here and this deb file here. And then what we would do is, if I just switch back across to the Linux machine, after you've done that and you've downloaded the deb files to your downloads folder, we can install them using dpkg, so sudo dpkg-i *.deb, and the asterisk is a wildcard, so that will basically match both of the Debian files that you've got in the directory. Make sure you've just got the two Debian files, deb files in the directory, because otherwise it will try and install other ones that you've got in that directory. So you run sudo dpkg -i *.deb, and that's going to install the the Ndi plugins. The next step, if I come across to OBS Studio on this computer, this is the Linux machine that I've just installed the tools on, and I've disabled the preview in the center here so that it doesn't display an infinite screen. Now, after you've installed the plugins, what will happen is if you come up to the Tools menu, you'll see a new setting that says Ndi Output Settings. If you select that, what you need to do is click put a check mark next to Main Output, and you can give the output a descriptive name. So in my case, I've called it OBS Linux. Now, once you've got the Ndi output enabled, you won't be able to change the video output settings that you normally use to encode the video. So when you come across over to here to settings and output, you won't be able to change the output settings if you have the Ndi output enabled. So if you need to change your recording settings, you need to disable this and click OK, and you can then change the settings and re-enable it. What this does is this will create a stream of your OBS output that you can receive on another computer. In this case, I'm using a Windows computer to capture the Ndi stream from OBS Studio running on a Linux machine. And just a side note is I'm using a Mac Mini, and I recently installed a new SSD drive in it, and I set up Boot Camp and installed Windows. On the Mac, when I run OBS Studio and the Setup Wizard connected to a 1080p monitor, the output settings that it recommends are 960 by 540, which is really small. So what happened is I switched over to Boot Camp in Windows and installed OBS Studio. And then when I run the Setup Wizard on OBS Studio, the output settings were 1280 by 720. So it's the same machine, same hardware, but on Windows I can capture it 1280 720, but on the Mac I can only capture it 960 540. So maybe that's just a issue of, you know, the Macs being really sluggish these days, and I don't know, but I thought I'd mention that if you're running a Mac, you might want to install Boot Camp and install OBS Studio on Boot Camp, because it seems to be a lot better. It captures stuff a lot better than on the Mac. But that was a little side note. But the other thing you can do is once you've got this enabled, as well as the output settings, if I click here, you'll see that I have a new option down here, Ndi Source. Let me add a new capturing the screen here, so I don't want to, and then beaming it over, so I don't want to do anything to stop it. So if I go Ndi Source and click OK, you can actually see here, this is listed here. This is the current source that I'm outputting. Let me close and get rid of that now. If I had another computer running OBS and sending the output via Ndi, that output would show up in that option there, and you'd be able to select it and record the other machine's OBS output. The other thing that you can do is you can actually capture the audio from an Ndi output stream, but there's a catch. There's a little workaround that you have to do. So what I've got here is if I switch to this scene, hang on, I didn't have screen capture in that one, so I haven't got an Ndi Source set up, but see if I can just quickly add this back. Just bear with me with the okay, yeah, okay, right, sorry about that. So what I've done here is I've added a Ndi Source, but I haven't actually selected a source from another machine to display, because what I want to do is just show you the workaround that you need to capture the Ndi audio from another machine, because the other machine can send can send the video capture, but also the audio capture. So, for example, if you were recording a a Zoom call or something on one machine with OBS and sending it via Ndi, you want to be able to capture both the video and the audio. So the way that you do this is, if you see here in my Ndi Source, what you need to do is click on this and select Advanced Audio Properties. And you can see we've got the Ndi Source here, and it's set to monitor off. What you need to do is change it to monitor only, mute output, and click close. Okay, and now what that's going to do is that is going to send the output through your desktop audio. So this is the sort of desktop audio that I'm capturing, or I would be normally. If I was playing some audio with the Ndi Source, you'd see the volume coming up here, but you wouldn't be able to hear anything. And when you did a recording, there would be no audio. So I said, what you need to do, come across to the audio output, advanced settings, set it to monitor only. Then what's going to happen is the audio will be routed from the Ndi Source through the desktop audio, and it's actually going to come out your speakers. So you're probably going to want to put some headphones in. But the level of the audio that you record is determined by the volume of the desktop audio. So you might be tempted just to mute the desktop audio, but that would just mute the audio output in the recording. So as I said, basically what you need to do is enable the advanced audio properties, set to monitor only. That will then route the audio through the desktop audio and then be captured. So that's the workaround that you need to do to actually get the audio from an Ndi Source recorded on another machine, which is going to be useful if you're using another machine to capture a Zoom call or a Skype call or Google Hangouts or something like that, because obviously you're going to want to capture both the audio and the video. So that's how you do an audio capture from an Ndi Source. And again, once you install the plugins, you have this new option, Ndi Source. Click name, and you'll see the source show up here. Currently, I've only got this machine I'm working on, sending the output via Ndi to another machine I'm recording on. So that's how you add the Ndi Source. And again, the option will show up here, Ndi Output Settings. And you need to check this, fill in a name so that you can identify the machine. And remember, when this is checked, you can't change the settings for your output. So that you would need to come across, uncheck that, click OK. You can then change the settings, and and then re-enable the NDI output. So that's the Linux side of things on how you install the latest version of OBS Studio, which is needed to install the plugins, how you install the plugins, enable output and enable an input source, and then capture the audio from that input source. So what I'll do is just come back across to the browser here, just to quick refresh, and if I can remember what the keys are to switch across. Okay, so again, we came across to the OBS project /download, click Tux, which then gives you these instructions. Remember, we first had to uninstall OBS Studio with sudo apt remove obs-studio. We then added the PPA. We run sudo apt update, and then you run sudo apt install OBS Studio, and that will give you version 2.25.0.8, whereas the version that comes with Ubuntu repos is, I believe, 25.0.3. And if I come across to the NDI page here, you won't actually see any mention of the required version to get this plugin working. It'll just say use this release with OBS Studio version 25 or above. But as I said, if you just use the standard OBS Studio that comes with Ubuntu, it's lagging several versions behind. So these this plugin won't install if you're just running the stock version of OBS, and you need to upgrade it to 25.8. And then once you've done that, basically you just download the deb files. Again, then we ran sudo dpkg space -i *deb, and that installed the 2 Debian files. Once we've done that, we then have NDI input and output that you can use with other machines on the network. And if I just come across to the Ndi Tools page and just show you some of the tools that you get on Windows and on the Mac. The Studio Monitor is an application that lets you view the output stream that's been generated by OBS. So that will let you pick up the NDI streams on your network. You can also get cameras that work with NDI. So this is a good way of previewing all the NDI streams on your network, rather than using OBS and adding an NDI source. So that's the Studio Monitor. Then the scan converter is basically it's a little applet that runs in the system tray on Windows. And basically what it lets you do is draw a rectangle on the screen to capture a particular window. And you have a similar sort of thing on the Mac, but on the Mac, basically you have a menu with a drop-down list of currently open windows on the machine, and you select one. The other thing that's really cool is the Ndi Virtual Input, and this basically is a bit like the virtual camera OBS plugin. So this basically will allow you to create a virtual camera from the output of OBS Studio, which will then show up in programs like Zoom, Skype, Google Hangouts, etc. There's also an Ndi VLC plugin just for Windows, which I haven't actually tried yet, but that should allow you to encode the output in real time. Okay, so basically it's sort of, I don't know if that just lets you view the output in VLC. You then have some an NDI camera app, and there's also an NDI package for Adobe. I haven't used this one. Yeah, this is the Adobe package down here. And then the Access Manager is a thing that basically lets you manage your NDI streams on the network and group them together and stuff. And then down here you have NDI test patterns, which I believe is just a Windows version. You don't get that on the Mac. And then the driver here is basically a driver for NDI products, I guess. But if you scroll down, you'll see the Ndi tools for Windows and for Mac, and you can see that on Windows you have several extra packages, applications that you don't get on the Mac. And as I said, I tried OBS Studio. I've got OBS Studio running on Linux, Mac, and Windows. On the Mac, basically, when I run the wizard, as I said, it will give me an output of 960 by 540. And if I actually go above that, try and do a bigger size than that, I'll get audio glitches and popping in the video. Whereas when I switch to Windows running on Boot Camp on exactly the same machine, OBS Studio lets me record at 1280 by 720. So that's why I'm using OBS Studio on Windows. The other thing that's an advantage on Windows is you can use VST plugins like Reaper. I just come across Reaper VST. Just taking a second here. On Windows, you can download these either 32 or 64-bit plugins, which you can then use with OBS Studio to improve the quality of the audio. For instance, noise gates, compressors, equalizers. There are VST plugins for the Mac as well, but there seem to be more for Windows and Linux. At present, the OBS Studio application hasn't enabled VST plugins on Linux. So if you want to use VST plugins, you're going to need to use Mac or Windows. And I said you're probably better off using Windows because you can get the Reaper plugins which aren't available for the Mac. So that's actually what I'm using to record this audio now. I set up OBS Studio with some of the VST plugins like noise gate, compressor, equalizer. I played around with them a bit. So it'd be interesting to compare recordings done on the Mac to recordings done on Windows, and the difference between the size of the windows that you can basically capture on the Mac versus on Windows, because I haven't seen this mentioned anywhere else, but as I said, switching between the two, I can record at 1280 by 720 on Windows, and only 960 by 540 on the Mac. So it's really an easy choice to choose which one you're going to record with. But anyway, that's basically how you would install the OBS NDI plugin on Ubuntu. And remember, basically you need to install the PPA after you've uninstalled your current version of OBS Studio, and it's not a problem if you want to switch back to the stock version. You can just basically uninstall OBS Studio, which would uninstall this PPA. You could then remove the PPA from your software sources on Ubuntu, do a sudo apt update, and then sudo apt install OBS Studio, and it will install the previous version of OBS Studio. So that's basically how you can set up NDI on Ubuntu, so that you can send the output of OBS Studio to another machine and import the NDI output from another machine into Linux, and also capture the audio by changing the advanced audio properties to monitor whatever it was it monitor, let me refresh my memory a second, monitor only mute output. And as I said, once you've done that, it will start recording the NDI audio through the desktop capture.